Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another episode of AyAyAyAi.
Ay, 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 ay.
I
AI.
love it. I love it.
There you go. So, Danielle, you get another chance at the end. So,
Yes.
be on lookout for that. So, we have Danielle here with us today. And thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us. It is in the middle of the week, and we are having this pleasant conversation about AI, machine learning. And thank you for making this time to join us because what else can you do in the middle of the week other than talk about AI machine learning, which I
I
think all
love
three
it.
of us live
I
and breathe
love
at
it.
this point.
Thank you so much for having me and bringing me in. And I am here for you both, and I'm ready for any and all questions.
Absolutely, it's an hour long conversation, so we might not have enough questions. So you can ask any of us a question, and we will continue the
It'll be a
conversation.
conversation, an exchange
Oh,
of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
exchange of ideas.
Everyone's
So
going to
luck,
learn today.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think Lucky has some some topics that he has in his mind. So let's start with
Well,
that.
I mean, I always just kind of fish out for things, but it'd be good to know, today's application. We're going to try to, at least try to understand better what you do, and then also, there's a common theme of what people do and how what we've done in past, at least podcasts, associate what people do in some cases to what AI or machine language or deep learning or what different type of modeling could support any type of your services, and it doesn't make sense, and we talk about how scary it can be or how realistic it could be. So if you could just give us a little bit of background, so we know the audience knows, where you come from.
Wonderful. Let's tell the tale, as they say, and tell the story. So, my background: I was a trauma nurse for about a decade and traveled the world, learning how do we take care of each other using technology. Coming from the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Sunnyvale, Cupertino area, I was always surrounded by engineers and education, being close, Stanford and Berkeley and San Jose State. So it was common for me to use technology before I became a science person. And I love the thought of science. I love the thought of how we would take care of each other. So I pursued that path, taking care of people. And when you're in the hospital working, not a lot of times people realize that you're using technology every day. The tools you're using, it's not just the computers, it's not just the vital sign machines. If you're helping somebody in the OR, there's tools and machines you have to know how to use. So it's part of something that we do, but we just kind of fold it in our practice that just becomes kind of commonplace. So over the last now almost 20 years of me working in healthcare and folding in technology as like my day-to-day job, I've learned so much. I've gone to over 45 states in 40 plus countries, learning about healthcare technology, from going all over Spain, Malta, Denmark, went up to Scotland, France, Estonia, went out to Austria, Germany, just so many places, just learning how this all comes together. And then about 4 years ago, I realized I could see and predict what was happening. And I felt nurses need to know more about artificial intelligence and how it folds into our day to day practice and care. So, doing a lot of focus on writing clinical textbooks. As a nurse informatics, we're the translators. So I could talk to someone in IT. I could talk to someone in business. My degree has an emphasis in medical economics. I can talk to the data scientists. I took, a third of my degree is computer science. A third is information science. And then a third is advanced nursing science. So it's a lot of explaining what I do and translating because, nursing informatics has been recognized since 1992 by the American Nursing Association. When I go to, say, Iceland or Norway, in the Nordic regions, they understand nursing informatics. They have people with PhDs and they collaborate together. So it's a lot of evangelizing, explaining. So what I
Mhm.
did to start the process to explain to other people what is nursing informatics, how does technology, how does this all fold in together, this conversation, I coded and created my own digital health library. demonstrating that, I could code. I made my website. I treat hashtags like the Dewey Decimal System so I can catalog, so someone can go in and go AI, hashtag nursing, and pull up those articles. So it's kind of my open library repository, and I take that information throughout the day that I'll find and I'll post on my website. I'll go back in and use that as my source research to write a blog or to write a paper. I wrote something about blockchain at one point. It was placed in an academic paper, or going forth, and people invited me to do books, doing clinical books. So it's been an interesting ride. So now the focus I see shifting how artificial intelligence comes into nursing. I'm working with a lot of PhD nurses in nursing informatics, and they are getting on boards. They're talking with companies saying, if you're going to make artificial intelligence for clinical people, for patients, then you need to have a clinical person on board who's actually going to be the one that's going to onboard, who's vetting these products, who's working on the research papers. So that's kind of the tale of how one starts in Silicon Valley taking care of people and using technology to now, being quoted in books, quoted in research articles, to writing my own books. And, you know, I'm just here to tell the tale.
Beautiful tale. I love it.
Definitely. Yeah, you have a very eclectic, very different background. You never really expect, and only because my daughter is studying to be a nurse. She's in Montana now, and learning. She's studying to be a nurse. She's got a year and a half to go, and I'm a super nerd, and so for my daughter, I have my son who likes technology, but to have them both, to be able to be able to have the human side and then be able to communicate that and then bring the technology side is a very, you're one in a million is one.
Well, it's
I
the
see that.
translators, and it's changing people's mind and focus. If I'm working in Italy, they say, "Well, we didn't know anything about someone like you," or I got to work with a company in Poland, writing blogs for them, and or working with someone in Bulgaria, talking about, like, we don't have someone like you. We don't have. I said, we exist. You're just not aware we exist. And so as I go to these different countries, whether I'm speaking or writing or just having a cup of coffee and talking with someone, it's kind of like my duty to bring that information, that knowledge, because too often when I talk with like the PhD nurse informatics or in AI, it's hardening when you go in and you're creating your seat at the table on the board and they don't understand your value. So you have to break it down and explain to them your value. Go, okay, you want to do this and this. Okay, how are you going to accomplish this without a clinician on board to guide you through the process? Is your point of just making something because you like it? Or do you want people to actually use it and to get a benefit from it? So it all depends on what
Exactly.
someone's goal is.
Hmm.
You can make a beautiful dashboard, but if no one's going to use it, what's the point?
Exactly. And it takes a trained eye to know, on the user side and also the technology side of what's important. And say we like to say AI, but with the emerging technologies of machine language, Asif, there's a lot of different opportunities there that we can grow. And specifically in the medical field, they like to say AI, and then you have a lot of PhDs that want to jump in and say, yeah, we have an idea, but the reality is they don't. It's a
Correct.
buzzword. It's a buzzword.
It's actually
We
more
want
machine
it.
learning that they're
Yeah.
doing than it
Yeah.
is, artificial intelligence, and
Exactly.
knowing that difference. And a lot of it's reading. A good point. I just had a conversation with a PhD nurse who's teaching at Notre Dame, and she wanted her students to talk to me and put a panel together. So I reached out to my PhDs, my doctorate in nurse practice is another specialty, both doctorates, and I have an MBA nurse as well that works heavily in data as her main time job. Going back to get her informatics so she can say, I am an informatics. And so this is what the students are getting their bachelor's in nursing. We're asking, what do I need to know to prepare for the future? They wrote some of the best questions. They asked about interoperability, like complex things and questions written so well, everyone's like, oh wow, like they're really thinking. Do I need to do SQL? What else do I need to prepare for before I get out? What use of language do I need to get myself ready before? So they're already planning for that master's level, that PhD, for those conversations already while getting their bachelor's degree. And I could honestly say when I was getting my bachelor's degree in the Bay Area, it would have been nice being in Silicon Valley to be able to partner with other companies to sit down and go with someone and go with the Oracles, go with, Siemens and different companies and sit with them. But they're asking those questions now to create their place, to create that mindset. There's also an institution in Florida that I discovered where the nurses are getting their bachelor's of nursing, and then they have a choice. Once they graduate, they have to do I think they have to do a couple courses in Python, make sure their calculus is
Wow.
complete. And then, so like a summer course, they have both their Python done, their calculus. Then they actually go into a master's program where they have the choice between getting their master's in artificial intelligence or bioinformatics. So they're coming out with a full bachelor's and an engineering degree. And so this is what I'm trying to express to people that have been, working in the business for a while. They've been working in healthcare and technology. They're, you know, uh, data scientists, as I like to call my whole group, as they don't realize the generation that's coming behind me are coming out with
Hmm.
a full master's level degree. They want to work in machine learning. Their minds, they have their minds constructed in a way that they could see kind of a 360 level of what's happening. And those people, not only do they inspire me, they need a place, and they need a place created for them for what they created for themselves. And if people don't know these type of people exist, how do you nurture them and get them to the next level?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So if they came to you, asked if they came to you, Rocky, and said, okay, I have this master's, I have my bachelor's, I'm all done, I'm ready to go. How do you nurture someone like that? And those are conversations that I like to have, um, to prepare people, because they're coming right up behind me. I graduated in 2016, and now we're here in 2022.
Yeah.
And, the game is constantly changing.
Yeah.
What what like one of the questions that the students are asking. I'm also thinking about students questions like that because
The big
I want to impress
question
you with my question.
was language. What is the terminology? What are the words I need to know? I need to research. What do I need to read? What do I need to study to get to that next level? And they're already talking about the next level before they graduate. They want that use of language. They already have realized they don't want to be in the boardroom and not know where they're sitting at the table. Which player are they? Is this the first time they're hearing these concepts and information? Or are they coming with questions because they've already done their homework and they know what to ask? So that's a lot of times myself and other informatics are doing, whether it's with a hospital or companies. If you're going to go and pitch your product to a clinical person, when you built your product, did you have clinical people involved? Especially when you're talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence. 10 years ago, people could have gotten away with not having a clinical person and then just let the company or let that person drive the conversation. Now people are giving, they're much more savvy. Even basic bachelor programs in nursing, they have a year of nursing informatics. So they're learning how to build dashboards. They're learning how to do basic coding. I think HHS in 2021 gave out 75 million. I think it's 75 million. I have to go back and double check,
Hmm.
to underserved institutions to elevate their health tech learning capabilities. So it's a thing. As I say, nursing informatics is global. What we do in technology is global. It's not, um, I'm not a singular phenomenon. When someone calls me and says, can you give me like 10 Danielles? I'll ask them, what do you want English to be their first or second language? Doesn't matter.
Wow.
If they can
Yeah.
code dashboards in Brazil and they have a master's in health tech from there, I can get you somebody. If you want somebody from Norway, I can get you somebody. If you want someone from Uganda that's getting their second master's in telehealth in Canada, I can get you somebody. So it's more what the students were asking me, what was the biggest barriers? As you were saying, I said, what were their questions? And I said, it's awareness. People don't know what they don't know. They don't know what they need or what they're lacking until they have a conversation now on those board meetings and realize people are asking tougher questions.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
about what
I'm sorry.
about
Go ahead, Asif.
like but this nurse shortages, right? This nurse shortages is happening. Look, I think I want to say, with all respect to the nurses, that there are strong and there are stronger people, and the stronger people are the nurses, and you are definitely one of the stronger one, because you made it through 10 years of working in trauma centers, and I've been around medical institutes very few times, and every time I've been there, I just couldn't stay strong enough. I was like, I got to get out of here. So thanks for
But
what you do. Thanks for what you
High
have done.
stress.
it's not
And
the
I'm
care
looking at
part is
myself like,
easy.
it's not for everybody, right? It's
No,
not
no,
for
it's a
everybody.
calling. It's not for
How do
everybody.
we yeah, how do we augment using machine learning to help the nurses to take some of the burden of that? You have to be so strong to provide these kind of services. How can we use machine learning to help them take that stress off, or augment them with better tools? Like, what sort of use case are you seeing in the field right now?
You're asking very good questions, and I'm often asked these questions because since I started in nursing, there was a nursing shortage. I don't think people hear those words, but they don't understand what they mean. So I'll put in context of what it means. So 20 years ago, the average age of the nurse was 45. Now it's more like 58. So it's not about being tough. There, there's only so much physically you can dodge being, stabbed and shot in an ER.
Hmm.
It's almost, physical. Then you add COVID. People are, you know, time is passing. And there was a gap, I think, in the late 80s when HIV hit through the 90s, where it was partly people not understanding the clinical process of HIV, but it was also part where insurance companies decided they didn't want to pay for nurses. And people sometimes don't understand the economics of how nurses are paid. And it's paid through bed days. So how many days someone stays in the bed uh, allocates to how much the money the nurse is going to get. That the funds come from the bed days. It doesn't come from the tasks that you do, taking care of them, giving your heart. That's not a dollar value on giving quality care. It's quality care in a sense for the patient that if they're harmed, that harm to the patient, the harm to their mental, the harm to their body, that's a damage. And there's a cost to that. But it's not a cost coming for, the task, giving someone a massage, caring about somebody, writing a card to a family member. That's not where the cost comes into play. So, one, there's a gap of a certain group of age of nurses that do not exist. There's a gap now with COVID, but a lot of people I know left their corporate jobs and went back into the hospital, went to the bedside, went into hospitals that hadn't been in quite some time. I know one recently posted after 22 months on a COVID unit, and this gentleman had been working corporate long before I had switched over, working in a corporate environment. And he's like, oh, it took 20 months, now I have COVID. So we were always putting our mind and body on the line. And now it's even more so. So it's a combination of a few things. Time has caught up to us. Not supporting nurses, not supporting the practice, not, there's nurses I know that are 100K in debt, you know, to take care of people. That 10,000 is great. I would grateful. I will take it. It will go down on my student loan, but it's a challenge for some people to make bills, to make even. So where does technology come in? If you ask the nurse on the floor, if you ask the nurse in management, or even higher up, the challenge is with technology. If it takes me 2 hours longer to do my job with the integration technology is not making it better for them. If it's hindering them, it's taking more time. If it took me 20 steps to do something before, now it takes me 59. They're not going to embrace
Hmm.
technology. So I see now more the integration of dashboards, integration of people being able to monitor more. But the nurses that are actually in the hospital, it's hard for them to connect from what they're doing and technology. Um,
Hmm.
it's just not always technology making it easier. And it's not always somebody there that can stand up from and say, okay, you want to use this, how is this going to benefit them? And it needs to be a tangible way for it to benefit. You can predict what the problem is,
Exactly.
and you can predict what's going to happen, but you have all this data, you have this information, these predictions. But if you don't have someone that could take that information and make it actionable to make it better for someone, and they can see that difference, and also comes down to cost. Someone brought the other day, and this is something I always say: if something's difficult, it might be more politics or money involved that's hindering the situation, making it better. Is making it better uh, costing somebody less money? So therefore, there might be some roadblocks. So it's understanding now nurses wanting to pursue being on boards. They're understanding now the politics. That's why I got my degree emphasis in medical economics, so I can see the big picture, be able to sit at the table and talk to everyone and see what the problem is. So nurses are acutely aware of what's going on, and the ones on the floor, they just want to do their job. And if you use technology to make it better, they're all for it. But what they have seen is that, it takes longer to do my job, to take care of my patient, than it does for me to take care of them in an efficient manner.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
and
body,
that
time,
makes sense.
money, politics, and someone that could take that ball and bridge from, I understand this technology. Like when you have like a CINO, when you have a CIMO, and it's very difficult to find like a true CMIO. You can find a CIO, um, but someone that has that political pool, that can see the big picture, that can see the technology and see how it can benefit, that person's difficult to find. Another topic we're talking about, technology, artificial intelligence. I've worked with quite a few CIOs in healthcare, and the PhD brought up to me is like, okay, why does the CEO have to always not be a clinician when there's plenty of clinicians that have, these advanced technical background? When you look and it's like, okay, this person has a bachelor's degree, but this person has a PhD, and it's not, it's in technology. But it's a lot of times it's perception. People perceive
Hmm.
one thing and they can't see past that.
Yep. And you bring up a good point. Being from the IT side of the house, it's hard for me to imagine. And I've worked in the VA 20 years, and I've helped, and I've worked and other than that, supporting other agencies. But it's hard to see anyone coming from the medical side and saying, all right, you guys are going to help us create this IT platform or this IT architecture. Typically, it's the other way. The line of questioning and the support's coming from the IT side of the house, and they're trying to ensure that the medical side's getting what they need. But the feedback is always, we just want to get something that'll help us do something, but they don't necessarily know what it is, and then IT is charged with creating that service, and it's
You're
different.
missing a translator.
It's yeah,
You're
and
missing
it's
that
refreshing.
person that can
Yes.
speak to, the medical doctor. Okay, you want this? No, but really, what do you want? Okay, you want this? You want
Mhm.
that? No, no, no. Like, really, you want this and this, right? This is what you really want. Oh, yeah, I want that. And then to turn to you, okay, this is what they're really trying to say. And so that's why I'm quoted about quite a bit as being that translator that can take those two dichotomies and bring them together. Because it used to be like you were saying, this is you're trying to come up with and figure out what they're trying to say, because they don't have that technical background. And they have, all this great medical background, but they don't have the technical jargon to articulate what they need to you. And that's why a good clinical informatics coming in and stepping in and listen to all parties, working with the contractor. There's always a contractor involved, someone that's on the business side, be able to talk to them, understand how is a contract written? What is the language you need to see in there? What are you looking for that I can get both these two entities to talk to each other, understand each other, and let's put it on paper so we can get this done. So we do exist. It's just people don't know we exist, and they don't know sometimes how to utilize us because they're just not aware. Um, so I think you're bringing up a valuable point where you're trying to invent the wheel with someone that doesn't have the same use of language as you do, and
Exactly.
that use of
We're
language is
speaking two
speak.
different languages, you know?
You're speaking two different languages, and that's why I come as a translator. And I always ask people, okay, you're saying you want this, but it sounds to me you really want that. And what you want this radio dial button over here. That's great, but that's $5 million. Is that what you really want? Or do you want a better process that we can do, you know, for more economical reasons that actually gives you what you want? Yeah, yeah, I want the second one. Oh, okay. Well, let me talk to Rocky. Okay, this is what they really wanted. You go, oh, that's what they
Exactly.
wanted. I'm like, yeah, they just didn't have the words to bring it together for you. So to me, the big change that I love in the last, I would say it's 2015, there's a lot more collaboration. It's not like two parties where it's kind of awkward. They don't know what each other is saying and want, where people are coming in. Oh, I have my marketer, I have my business person, I have my IT person, I have my sponsor that can pull the trigger and is going to support the project throughout. And we're going to do our project. Might take 6 months. And when it's finished and there's no hard feelings. We don't, there's no kind of hubbub after. So I'm here, Rocky, if you need me.
Yeah, we were talking about, okay, so it's hard to just say AI or machine language or some kind of service, something's going to come in and make your job easier. Because when it comes to nursing, it's like you come. It's a very personal thing with the patient, and how do you get technology in there? You come in, you look at the patient in the eyes, you see, if they're responsive. You go through vitals. You see if they need any help. It's hard to say that AI is going to come in and revolutionize that service, but like you said, there's other areas that can be that can AI can lend some support to, like predictive modeling. Look at maybe disease states, help with panels. I'm not an expert, but I have been to the doctor several times. Right, I'll just go to the
Yeah,
doctor.
Dr. Google.
Yeah,
I would
so the
say
nurse.
the clearest example
Yeah.
where I can explain that would make sense to you is a nurse on an ICU floor or on a tele floor where the patient's being monitored. Someone doing a predictive analytic, and I've seen it a couple times. I've seen, I think, University of Michigan. I sat on a talk they were doing, trying to predict septic shots, someone going into
Mhm.
sepsis. That I've seen quite a bit. People trying to predict that. One recently, we've been looking into some. I call my mastermind teams uh, in wounds. How to predict wounds on a patient using, logarithms. I've seen examples of heat sources, but when we looked at it, it wasn't quite what we were looking for. And then expanding into taking AI, uh, wounds of patients, and diversity, because sometimes people don't see people different from them and they don't know the behavior of one's skin. They don't know
Oh
how a
yeah.
disease process might be different on one person than the other because they're only looking at that person through their eyes and not the totality of this person's like life or career or care. It all plays in together. I think I studied a book in undergrad about the Hmong. It's called The Spirit Catches and You Will Fly. And so it was teaching you about the Hmong culture and how they lived and the disease process and how they would see something like seizures as something like a spiritual thing. And so you have to understand where people are mentally coming from, culturally coming from. And we talk a lot about transcultural and understanding that, but those pieces play in all together in nursing informatics because you have to understand the people side, the healthcare side, you have to understand the technology side, and you also understand the business of healthcare. And this is something I talk a lot about. You want to go into artificial intelligence, you want to go into machine learning, but you don't understand the business. And healthcare is a business. So what you're talking about, the touching part, that's caring for someone. But if you want to get something done, if you want to get a tool in place, you have to understand the business along with the technology because you have to sit at the table, be able to have a conversation with everyone on a way that they can understand what you're saying.
Mhm.
And if you
Yeah.
can't do that, then you lost your seat at the table.
This implications of machine learning in all industries have a piece to augment without being intrusive, without violating somebody's privacy. And of course, as we have imagination to say, like, hey, let's bring in machine learning into nursing or medicine practice, right? Oh, now we start seeing gadgets hanging off somebody's shoulder with a camera, all sorts of imaginations about, like, oh, the nurses, they're robots now. um i
There is
i
Moxie. There is a robot
I'm,
out there. I've written about it. There is
right,
we
robots
called
that
her
is nurse, literally, it's
like a
happening.
little AI helper. She's a little robot
Little
called
AI
Moxie.
helper, comfort
Hmm.
care, right? AI that
Hmm.
provides you with companionship, understands your emotions and sees your emotions and react to it.
Do your
All
little
sorts of things are
tasks.
coming into the market. And one I'm so surprised by is that the wide use cases that we should have uh, implemented first, instead of those wide use cases that are like not visible to naked eyes, right? Instead of implementing those, we're going into this like gadget heavy hardware, sophisticated things that could go wrong very quick, very fast. Where
This is
you could
tangible.
improve just the IT system on the background of medical treatment, right? As in, you don't necessarily have to have a computer vision looking at X-rays to figure
Hmm.
out what sort of medical condition that you're looking at an X-ray or some sort of scan. Just that amount of data that you can take in by improving that data intake, and then take that data intake and understanding that data intake with, like, the need for diagnosis and treatment, all in the background, as in within the software that doesn't require extensive hardware investment, right? um, I find it shocking because, like, what I see versus what you see is different, because, like, you're in the industry and I'm not. But what I see is that the robots, that those emotional hardware gadgets that are sort of like, not creepy, but at the same time, sort of that has like a dystopian look to it, right? I'm
I think you got
wondering,
to
like,
see Moxie's face to understand.
what, what about in the background? Do they have lots of inspirations to do things like that in the software level, where you're able to do data analytics in a whole nother level,
It's
where
running
you
in the
you no
background.
longer have to rely on, yeah, running on the background, not so
People aren't
intrusive
aware
on
that it's even there.
your monitor and your screen.
What I always wonder about, and it's something I've talked about this in the past, when it's less intrusive, but then to come back and show what's the data points, why are you doing it? And that's a big thing I think is missing, is the why. Um, Anytime I've talked with companies, why are you doing this? What's the benefit? Do you have an audience? I talked with a company in Italy and they made this great platform. They used their machine learning, they did everything right. And I said, okay, where is this going to live? They're like, oh, it's going to live on the doctor's computer. Oh, it's going to live on the doctor's computer running in the background in Italy. How many providers in Italy are using an EHR, or they're using a computer that could handle your program running in the background? Did you do your research before you did all this to see if this was viable? And they got quiet and they said, well, we created it first, which is usually the situation. And now we're trying to implement, but it was only something like 6% in the whole country. So you have to know your audience and is there a need? There's a lot of time, the unspoken complaint that clinicians do not say, you build things for us, but not with us. And then you expect us to make it work. So I have no say so in this. I have no chance to speak my voice and say what's valid and what's not. But then there's an expectation that I'm the one that has to initiate this and make it happen. So although something is running in the background, at some point, somebody's going to know about that data and how it's benefiting the patient or how it's benefiting the process. And if there's no initial conversation about the why, and that's where people get caught up with, is the why are you doing what you're doing? And is it valid? Where is it going to live? Can it really live there? Or is it just living in your own imagination? I hope that's not too
It's
mean.
Yeah, this EHR is a perfect example, right? Electronic healthcare record. I think this is a perfect example because what that can do is tie up a whole lot of siloed information and say, how can we diagnose people's preferences, people's need and understanding from the notes, right? Give the insights from doctor's notes or that the checkbox that somebody checks off. It has so much implications behind it, and the use of it, if it was something like, okay, let's not talk about intrusive in a patient's eye, as in the nurse's 8 hours or 12-hour shift, right? You're not giving me extra 2 or 3 hours to figure out this new implementation that you have in place. You're not giving me that opportunity to go learn all these new things you're going to put into the system, and I'm never going to use it because I don't have that time in the day to change up my schedule to accommodate the new software that you've created, which I'm not going to use because guess what? I don't have extra hours in a day because you came up with the new software, right?
They
Your
do.
EHR that you
You
want to
do.
implement.
You work night shift, you do your 12 hours, and then after your 12 hours, someone sits you, you're expected to sit there 8 hours and learn, you know, and your eyes hurt, your body hurts. You take in what you can, but no one's going to come on the night shift and teach you. So we do it. We do learn. We go and make it happen. They do send us to classes. It's not all the time. It's not everywhere. It's not a universal thing. But then you find savvy people where I've trained and I've educated, and they pull me aside, go, because nurses are older. I'm supposed to teach the next generation of ICU nurses and level one trauma nurses. I need to know this technology forward and back. If I have to go to YouTube at home after night and study this so I can come back and be competent, be able to teach them, I'm going to do it. And it's not an age thing. I've come across people where they do not own a laptop, they do everything on their phone, and then you have to teach them how to use a mouse. I've had 80-year-olds that have Apple Watches in great shape and talking, I've been doing chemo 60 years now, and maybe I should go part time, or a 55-year-old that uses a flip phone. And I have to explain to them how Wi Fi works. And they can type an email, but they don't know how to send an email. And so I always say, if I could teach someone how Wi-Fi works, how to do their bank account, how to do an EHR, how to run their chemo drugs and use all the technology tools, and they feel successful when I leave, then anybody can learn. We can all collaborate together. It doesn't have to be, this is mine, I can only do this, you're not allowed to come over and play with me, or I'm not going to share information with you. I feel now for a lot of people that's kind of done. That old way of thinking of, I'm in charge and I tell you what to do. Um, Nowadays, people are into those type of, I don't know how to put it. People are into having those type of relationships. They want more of a collaborative relationship where everybody brings what they bring to the table to make it better. Especially when you're introducing technology in healthcare. Um, Introducing technology in healthcare is always slower than other industries. So people that come over from banking,
Is it slower than manufacturing? I'm sorry.
yes. Oh no, I've seen some manufacturing. I take that back. I have seen some manufacturing software, and that was pretty out of date. And there's only certain people that could do it. And you're right, that's totally fair. There'll be revolutionary eyes like every other place, but the actual software for the machinery. Um, so I think you make a very good point. But people have to be cautious in healthcare. Nobody wants to harm anyone or do anything. We didn't get into it to hurt somebody. We got in it to help people. So there's a lot of more rules and regulations.
And that's exactly what I was going to get into. What about HIPAA? Like, does HIPAA hinder or does that HIPAA add to the complexity? What do you think about HIPAA, and what sort of things are you seeing with HIPAA
I think
and machine
people
learning?
throw HIPAA around like they know what it means and they don't know what it means. So I can explain to you technically what each word, each letter means, but basically I'll give you a concept. I was working in LA. I was taking care of a patient. Someone called and wanted to know about their loved one, and they wanted details. And I said, um, give me a moment. I'll be right back. I didn't tell them about the person's condition. I didn't tell them if they were even there. I said, oh, hold on one moment. Let me just get right back to you. And they told me who they were. Like, they were this person's wife and blah, blah, blah. So I went to this person, said, this person, this is their name. They call, they ask this is this about you. Am I allowed to tell them that you're here? But even better, can I give you the phone and you talk to them? And he's like, had you told him anything, I would have probably sued you because I'm legally not allowed to give someone's, when I'm in the context of a hospital, give out someone's personal information. If it's, another doctor involved in their care, but if someone from another floor has nothing to do with this patient, never would, I can't sit and talk to them about someone else's condition. I would never talk about anything that transpired like in the elevator. Whatever I need to say is going to be said with this patient in this room. If another nurse needs a report, no, let's not talk outside. Let's talk in front of the patient. Doctor, let's talk in front of the patient. You don't get in trouble if you say everything the patient's on board because it's their care. If it's a situation where someone's upset and they're emotional and maybe there's some information they can't hear at the moment, then you could have like a side conversation in the doctor's room to prepare what you're going to say to be on the same page. But outside those two contexts, so HIPAA basically means I can't go in the elevator and talk about someone's care. I can't go to, a restaurant and talk about somebody's care. And I can't take their personal information and send it out to somebody that's not involved in their care. So that's all that it means. If you're doing right by people, you don't have a problem. Sometimes people use HIPAA as if it's some mythical thing that applies to everything. Like if Rocky and I were talking and he asked me about, my shot record history because we're going to share the same room. I'm going to tell him, because maybe he has an immune compromised family member at home. So he needs to make sure that I'm safe to be around them. That's not a HIPAA violation. So it's just that simple. You just think of, like your parents taught you. Do you talk about people behind their backs? You don't, you won't have a problem. And then just don't talk about them behind their backs and put it in writing for everyone to see. You don't have a problem. You have nothing
Dear
nice to say.
Diary,
Just don't say anything.
Dear Diary, on August 24th, at
Right.
this,
And blog about it and put it out there with like pictures and everything. It's, you could take it too far. So
I can't
it's
believe my best friend does this on a daily basis. I think the implication for AI machine learning in healthcare industry is tremendous because the repeatable and some redundant and some of the dangerous tasks to capture those repeatable ones and implement that is being called for a very long time, right? That the fact is in manufacturing, in service industry, hospitality, or entertainment business, when you bring in AI, the variables are, like case by case, where this is a human healthcare, where you have a trend of records, where you are able to provide similar services and have like variables between a person that's coming into the hospital. These repeatable steps are like very transparent and very available for like somebody who's not in the medical industry to come in and say, how can I incorporate that to help you guys out? Because this is very tremendously pressured area, like as in not pressured, but what's the right word here? Like you're under a lot of pressure to provide this care. How can we help? Whereas in like, if you look at manufacturing, they're like, oh, I'm hiding that process, so I don't want my competitors to
competitors,
find out about this.
Well, in the
If I'm
same
if
token,
I'm in the financial industry, I don't want you to find out how I do fraud detection. I want to be very closed-minded about, not closed-minded, that's not the right word either.
it's like
But in medical
proprietary.
services, I think, there's a lot of opportunity to, collaborate with technologists and say, how do I bring the nurses in and have them provide me with feedback to develop a technology that is not intrusive, more likely to add help rather than to be a burden,
Add value. Well, I think there's another piece that there's three aspects I always would keep in mind. And as you're saying it, I keep in mind people are worried about bias Is there going to be an understood bias? Is there going to be a program bias? Is this going to be talked about? And when I transitioned from working in hospitals to working out, globally in nursing informatics, I was a little afraid to collaborate with patients, to be quite honest, because I only had seen people on their worst day. I didn't see them at their best. I didn't see them, at the height of their career or the height of their life or the height of their MOAs. It's usually one of the lowest moments, of their life. Maybe they were like the star quarterback in high school and, with the Leatherman jacket, or, they invented something. So you don't see people at their best. And so when I started collaborating with global patients from South Africa, from Wales, from the US, and then you start talking about the data, how does this all play with AI? Um, every country is different, but the patient's like, this is my data. If you're going to take my data and put them in these products, I want to see it on the board. I want to see it at the table because it's my information. You have no product without my information. We talk a lot about in healthcare de-identifying data, so you can use it for research and different things, and that's done in artificial intelligence. And sometimes people aren't aware of that piece. So I always keep in my mind when I'm having conversations, to understand someone's view on the bias piece. Is this programmed in? Is this accepted? Is there a way to make it better? To have a conversation about it, because people have seen issues with artificial intelligence bias with people of color. And once you've um, kind of like, it's like a plane. Once a plane's had an issue and you're supposed to be on that plane, you might not fly that company anymore, or you might cancel your flight for that day. It's hard to
So
do
true.
service recovery,
Yep.
when something has had bad press. So you
Triple
don't know what
seven.
someone's perception is. So you have to talk about the why, what you're doing, um, to listen to them and understand where they're coming from and what's their hesitation, and then letting them know that you mitigate the risk the best you can. There's nothing's ever going to be perfect. Healthcare is not perfect. Technology, nothing's perfect. I was always taught the Silicon Valley. If someone ever tells you their product can never be hacked, run away from them. Run away. Don't look back like Lot's wife. Just keep it pushing. You don't need to even associate with this person. Someone says something is 100% unpackable. It's hack proof. Mine
Hack
is the
proof.
best. It's hack proof. Just run. Don't even ask why. Don't even try to
Mhm.
have a conversation. Do not even try to convince them this is possibly not true. So these are conversations I've had since the fifth grade. So this is kind of where I'm coming from. That every time I look at a product or any project, there's an inherent risk. So you can't sugarcoat that when you're talking with patients. You can't sugarcoat that when you're talking clinicians. Um, I've had these conversations with people, and then 6 months later, their whole software at their hospital's gotten hacked, and they've called me, and
Wow.
they're locked out. And then if you pay and you get it back, is it still the same? And do you just kind of get a whole new setup, or what do you do? And so a
Your
lot of
integrity is
clinicians that are at that
compromised.
level, they're not prepared for those
Mhm.
conversations. Um,
Yeah.
so where this all ties in with AI is I'm getting to is cybersecurity. Um,
Well, yeah, I
that
think
is huge in healthcare and is not, it needs to be part of the formal education.
I think
Mhm.
I think that's something that reminds me of blockchain being used. Like when you said, like, somebody said, no, this is unhackable. This is like Fort Knox. I started cracking up because in 2017, when blockchain was its peak, right? They were talking about how they're going to create blockchain, and then for next 4 years, they talked about blockchain for voting. And they said there's two parts to the voting. One is trust. Once the trust is lost, it's a done deal. So
Mhm.
when they're talking about blockchain and having voting by blockchain, I literally just kept telling her over and over, like, you do not want to go down the rabbit hole of creating a blockchain for voting, because what you're selling versus what the reality is, which is a physical component between two devices, it's not all blockchain in between. There's a physical infrastructure that's there, and it's not all blockchain in middle of two PC or two software, two servers, or two whatever it is, right? Communicating. Blockchain is not your solution for voting, because that once that trust component comes in and once it's broken in voting, it never goes back. it never goes back to that original box where you said, "Yep, I trust this voting system." Um,
You make a
I think in
valid
America
point.
it's much more sensitive because your business will wipe out overnight because you've been hacked. Now what? Your integrity is gone. Your integrity of your system, your data, your ability to say, "I will keep your information confidential," is gone.
And
I
that's
think
why you
you
have
brought
to
up a very
know
gold point there,
the
and that should
culture.
be something that's brought up all the time.
You have to know the culture and the people you're dealing with. The culture and the volume of the United States is not the same as Estonia. When I go to Estonia and they ask about blockchain, it's just another tool for them because they have a certain level of trust. They do not have real estate on it, but your healthcare, genomics, they take healthcare from a different level where it's based on your genomics. It's not your mother and father because they're under a different system where it's a lot more single mothers. And they feel the government should help the single mothers, not, the partner. So where we would ask, what disease did your parents have? What disease your grandparents have? What did they die of? If someone's adopted, they're not going to know. If someone wasn't close with their family or they didn't talk about such things culturally, they're not going to know. So they kind of don't even bother with those questions. They just go to the genetic level because someone you can give all the family history, but doesn't mean that's the actual makeup of that person. So there, I wrote up a blog and was placing a paper talking about GDPR and blockchain research out of Germany. And they were referencing my blog in their paper, and they were saying, how would blockchain work with GDPR in healthcare, tying all that together? So to me, it's a lot of, I mix reading use cases, reading papers, writing, traveling of what I see and what I learn, and staying, embedding for 2 weeks or a month, working with the CIO, working with the clinicians, working with the companies, to seeing what are the pain points, working with I don't even know to call. They're like patient experience. Like these people were marketers, and then they had healthcare problems, and now they're the face for don't overuse antibiotics or something like that. They have rare diseases, and they do lecture tours, and they work with companies. And I always stress to people, they weren't always a patient. This was a person that went to college, had a degree, was functioning, raising a family, and then they had a car accident or some rare disease. So these are very intelligent people that were just going along life, minding their own business, and something happened to them. They it's not all congenital, aging in place, and so it's really interesting when you're referencing blockchain. And to me, it's about trust. And in the U.S., we don't trust. We don't put a lot of trust in, a lot of things. There's certain institutions and certain groups of people, like nurses are heavily trusted. So if I speak about certain things, I have a license, I have skin in the game, so I'm, I can only speak the truth. I can't, fudge the numbers or make up a story. If I'm saying something's valid, it's valid. And if, I don't agree, I have to say I don't agree. And if I say I need to do more research, I'm going to do more research. So does blockchain work? Yes, it works with trust. But I think at one point, even Estonia, their internet got shut down, and they built back from that and took lessons learned and went from there. It's just really interesting how this all plays together. But I think above all else, it's trust. I have to trust that if I share my knowledge with you, you're going to trust that my what I'm saying is valid. I'm going to trust if you're coding something. I can't. I can understand some of it, but I can't sit and look at a full page of string of SQL and validate, say, yeah, that's great, that's good code, that makes sense. I can see the end result in the back end, and I can see what's in there and how the blocks come together, and that can make sense to me. But I can't sit there and say that, like, watch over you as you do your job. I have to put trust in you that you know what you're doing and you're good at what you're doing, and that's what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think Estonia's population plays a key role into it, and the isolation and how they got hacked and what happened after. As a community, they were able to say, like, there's a 1.1 million population here. How do we rebuild? Everybody was able to give their consensus fast enough, right? in US consensus is a very very hard. It's like a legacy system. You have to be around for 50 years to build one single consensus, right? Everybody to come to the same page about one topic. um, but that's okay. That's what we
But
have at hand. That's what we have to
those
work with,
50
right?
years in that legacy systems, I'm imagining most of those people have been able to speak to what they need and what they want and the why. That's the big difference. They are able to put their own skin in the game and ask questions and make it better for them. So when it's something new and no one, you know, it's like the bell curve, like the innovators and the laggers. Uh, it's proportionally how many people you're going to get on board at the beginning. Like, I'm an innovator. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to see if it works. Is it going to work for somebody else? And then come back and report what I see live on the scene. And some people want to have it fully formed and done before they even touch it. So some of
Yeah.
it's perception, some of it's trust, some of it's culture. So it's always like you always have to read the room.
I I definitely am more inspired after this conversation with you to engage in this very sensitive industry, sensitive domain of healthcare. Because me and Lucky, we talk about healthcare system time to time, but we don't delve into it because we're not the domain expert. We shouldn't be talking about it. Period. Like it's like talking on somebody's back, right? I should be in front of somebody who's in the healthcare industry to talk about. So I'm doing
I'm
the
just
right
telling
thing.
you, that's HIPAA.
We try to keep away from not talking in behind healthcare's back. So thanks for coming in and representing the healthcare industry and enlightening me and Lucky about this topic because we've had multiple industry folks come in and join the talk. We even had somebody who worked in healthcare AI. But for you to bring that healthcare perspective from the ground level, as in
Hmm.
you are on call, you're picking up those phone calls and you're responding to that, makes a huge difference for understanding like, okay, we have ideas, but these ideas to come to an action, there's a lot of decisions making to do. There's a lot of decisions intelligence that needs to happen, and seems like most of the other industries, healthcare is also lacking decision intelligence, which is a normal occurrence. But we can
Well,
help with
everyone
that.
can't see what they can't see, so you don't know what's over the hill. And so it's my job to be at the top of the hill and kind of direct the traffic and pull everyone together. So
Or you say like, I left the cave and I've been to the other side of the mountain. Trust me, I can take you there.
it was never, I was never in a box nor a cave. Mother said I was always like this, always from day one. This isn't an amalgamation of time. This is just how it was always has been.
This is me.
This is me. This is me. And I hope you take it, but if not, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm waving gave you Barry about that.
With that, thank you so much for being here with us. But before we go, we try that ay one more
Ay,
time.
ay, 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 ay,
Go. All right. Lucky, any departing thoughts on that?
Well, no, just I'm walking away with a new respect for my daughter, and now I'm going to push her to become a super nerd like me, and maybe she can help put together the next iteration of whatever it is in the future. But I am inspired by what you have provided me and what the schools are doing for the nurses now out there, because to bring them into our side of the field, or our side of the house, with the data science and the Python, to me it's just amazing, and it's a great at least it's, for me, it's a great story, and I'm sure more people out there are going to want to hear this, so thank you.
not a problem. And it's it's a story of us. Because if you want to be the change, you have to be the face. And you have to put yourself out there. You have to do, like they say, you got to put in the work. And so it's more to me about awareness, collaboration, being open, wanting to bridge those divides. And probably from today, you didn't realize there were nurses that had degrees that were heavy emphasized in data management. And now you know, nurses do code.
Nurses do code. Ay,
Nice.
ay, 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 ay,
Nice.
ay,
And that
ay.
makes me feel like going, ay, 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 ay.